In this video, I'm going to outline and focus on the key areas that need to be addressed when aiming to optimize women's health and hormones. This will help explain how lifestyle changes can enhance energy levels, performance, physique, and long-term health. If you are a busy entrepreneur or professional, then you will face issues relating to stress and time management. So maximizing your health and fitness can feel impossible. However, using what time you have effectively and sustainably to optimize your health and hormones is critical for energy, productivity, and long-term success. By fine-tuning your nutrition, fitness, and lifestyle, you can not only feel better day to day, but set yourself up for long-term success mentally and physically. The key main areas we will cover are nutrition, strength training, which will cover how to manage your menstrual cycle around training, stress management, recovery, and their impact on hormone regulation. In my experience working with hundreds of women over the last 15 years, many women have a hard time fueling properly. Your body relies on consistent intake of high quality nutrients to keep hormones like insulin and cortisol stable. Blood sugar fluctuations from skipping meals or eating too many processed carbs can trigger negative stress responses, which leads to an increase in cortisol and a decrease in insulin sensitivity. It's imperative we emphasize the role of consistent nutrient-dense meals in regulating blood sugar, which in turn helps balance cortisol, which is the main stress hormone, and insulin levels. Okay, so let's dive into this. And of course, as I've explained, we'll be highlighting the areas needed to optimize women's health and hormones, and taking this from a perspective of lifestyle changes to enhance energy levels, performance, and physique. If you're not already, subscribe to my channel. There'll be much more videos like this going forwards, and you can always go through the backlog of videos similar to these deep dives, which I've done already. So carrying on from the concern around food intake and nutrition intake and the amount of food one is consuming. So looking at nutrition optimization for hormone balance. The key areas of concern is avoiding undereating. Now, this is one of the main issues a lot of women face, and we need to realize that chronic caloric restriction can lead to hormonal dysfunction. For example, low thyroid hormone, disrupted menstrual cycles due to estrogen imbalance. Underfueling can cause issues like fatigue, anxiety, and poor concentration, but also cause many women to have irregular menstrual cycles or lose it for long periods of time. And this is commonplace amongst many women who have lost their period due to chronic undereating, have irregular periods, irregular menstrual cycles, or lost it altogether through dietary choices, especially like veganism, vegetarianism, which are all suboptimal, right? And we're not talking about just surviving here and avoiding disease. We're talking about living in an optimal state where you feel like you are thriving, I can't say that word properly, but thriving energetically and hormonally. And we have to realize that your energy levels and how you feel is predicated on your hormone balance, okay? So some practical advice to start this out is ideally you want to include balanced meals with proteins, healthy fats, and complex carbs every 3 to 4 hours to prevent dips in energy and mood. This can vary a little bit depending on your current body composition, immediate goals, and current health status. Looking at the importance of protein intake, why does it matter? Protein provides essential amino acids, the building blocks for muscle and hormone production. Inadequate protein intake can reduce lean muscle mass and affect metabolic hormones like growth hormone and insulin. And a lot of people don't realize, especially women, that protein is like the fundamental nutrient you need to be consuming, especially if you're trying to optimize your hormone function, which relates to how you feel and your energy levels, because it is literally the substrate that helps to produce those things, all right? Looking at protein and muscle mass. Having more muscle mass raises your metabolic rate, which improves fat burning and insulin sensitivity, crucial for hormonal balance. The impact on women. Women often underconsume protein, which can contribute to fatigue, poor muscle recovery, and even hair loss, a sign of low protein and potential thyroid dysfunction. So we have a example meal idea I've left here. So pre-breakfast. Now the reason I've put a pre-breakfast in is because obviously a lot of people work. They may get up early. They might have children. So ensuring when you wake up, you're getting some sort of nutrient into the body before the next available time you have to eat a proper breakfast is essential for managing energy levels, right? And that can start with a high protein source. So a whey protein shake, some fruit, and obviously some water as well, right? Then when you have time, maybe mid-morning or late morning, have a proper breakfast, which could include eggs, salmon, vegetables, berries. Then looking at lunch, could be chicken, sweet potatoes, vegetables, and fruit. Dinner, steak, rice, vegetables. And then some snacks, Greek or kefir yogurt, berries, and nuts. Avoiding undereating. So what are the consequences of chronic caloric restriction? So you will definitely see some issues with your main endocrine systems if you continue to chronically undereat. Looking at thyroid dysfunction, chronic low-calorie diets can reduce the production of T3 and T4, two hormones produced by the thyroid that regulate metabolism and energy levels. Disruption of the menstrual cycle. Low body fat and undereating can lower estrogen levels, which can lead to irregular menstrual cycles, bone loss, and decreased fertility. Increased fat storage. Undereating can paradoxically lead to fat gain, as the body starts storing fat due to a slowed metabolism. This is an issue that comes up with a lot of women who are overweight but have been undereating for years. And they can't seem to understand why they're still overweight, but they don't eat a lot of calories. They might be eating 1,200 calories per day. In this situation, there's nowhere else to go but to increase your calories. You can't lower your calories anymore or eat less food because that's going to be counterproductive. That simply won't work because your metabolism has become stagnant. To begin burning off the body fat, you must stoke the fires by increasing calorie consumption, increasing energy expenditure, and reducing stress. Looking at strength training and aerobic capacity. Why is strength training so essential? Because we want to be first highlighting muscle mass and metabolism. Muscle mass or muscle is metabolically active, meaning the more muscle you have, the more calories you burn at rest. This helps to regulate insulin and improve fat loss, especially in women who are often prone to fat gain due to hormone fluctuations, for example, during perimenopause. The hormonal impact. Strength training boosts testosterone and growth hormone levels, which are important for muscle repair and growth. For women, these hormones are also improve mood, cognitive function, and bone density. So some practical tips here are recommended to at least do 2 to 3 strength training sessions per week, focusing on compound movements like squats, deadlifts, and upper body push and pull movements. These exercises recruit multiple muscle groups, optimizing fat burning and muscle gain. Aerobic capacity. So cardiovascular health. Aerobic exercise improves heart health, increases lung capacity, and enhances endurance. It also helps regulate cortisol and insulin. Finding the balance. Too much cardio can elevate cortisol levels, leading to muscle breakdown and fat retention, especially around the midsection. So some practical example of this and recommendation is 30 to 45 minutes of low to moderate or intense aerobic exercise 3 to 4 times per week. That can also be done 1 to 2 times depending on your schedule and how many times you're doing strength training alongside your cardio. Okay. These can be split into low, medium, and high intensity days, low being longer sessions and high being shorter sessions. High intensity interval training, or HIIT, is also an efficient way to improve cardiovascular fitness without overdoing it, because usually those sessions are very short, they're very high intense, and they can fit into time constrained schedules. This can be utilized through any mixed modality class or fight training, like kickboxing, Muay Thai, boxing, BJJ, Jiu-Jitsu, stuff like that. That's also a very good way of getting in your cardio because you're practicing play, right? And as a lot of adults may have not had adequate time playing sports when they're younger, especially women. So you didn't have time when you just played and learned sports and utilized developing your aerobic capacity system. Now, trying to implement this in adult life can be difficult with time constraints, but if you sign up to a sport where you're going to be utilizing your cardio system, and a lot of those classes or sports will have a time frame, right? And you can try to fit that into your schedule. Even just once a week is really, really productive. Okay, looking at managing the menstrual cycle around training. Why the menstrual cycle may affect training. The menstrual cycle impacts hormonal fluctuations which influence energy levels, strength, endurance, and recovery. Understanding and aligning training expectations with these changes can optimize performance in the long term and reduce injury risk. Now, I personally don't recommend a massive overhaul of training programming, more so a utilization of the RPE scale. So, especially if someone or a woman is training more intensely in terms of they are working towards maybe competing in a sport, or they're playing a part of a team, or they're taking their training a little bit more seriously, and there would be classes like intermediate or advanced. It's not productive to be consistently overhauling your training because you're not really going to get anything done. And that's not really a productive or efficient way of going about things. So the best thing to do is to apply the RPE scale. So at times when you may be feeling low in the times of your menstrual cycle in terms of energy or motivation, then just follow the RPE scale. So that being, if you don't know what RPE scale is, rate of perceived exertion. So let's say your RPE for your squat at 80 kg is an RPE 9, which is very difficult, is hard. That's like you maxing out, right? And a training area, a training zone, which is good, productive training, would be like RPE 7, 8. And let's say that's, for argument's sake, is 60 to 70 kg, right? So on a good day, you might be able to push your RPE and attempt those heavier loads. But on a bad day, when your energy is feeling quite low, or you're in a particular part of your menstrual cycle and you just don't have it in you to push yourself, then take whatever weight feels like an RPE 7 and 8 and use that as your training weight for that day, instead of just trying to like push for the harder numbers when you just don't have it in you, right? And that you can apply that to your sport or whatever practice you are having for that day. So for example, if your program has 3x3, for example, so you have a heavy triple to do, or you have heavy doubles, and that means pushing your top end weight up towards the 80 kg, and you're in a particular part of your menstrual cycle, which is probably not going to be productive for that, then you're probably not going to be able to do that for the day. That doesn't mean that session is not going to be productive if you just apply the RPE scale, right? Now, in my experience, all women, they respond differently to the menstrual cycle, right? So some women are okay in terms of the most taxing time, which is in the menstrual phase, and some women it wipes them out. Okay, so you have to take this on an individualized basis and just see how you feel. But a good thing to do is to continuously just focus on adjusting your intensity, load, and output, but also developing your capacity to train during the menstrual phases, right? And I've had women who, within the menstrual phase, actually get PBs and they feel okay and they can actually train really hard. But I think for those people, that's more a case of they've developed the capacity to train and they've practiced training in these phases. Some women I've worked with, they just feel flat out and they can't do anything productive in that phase. And that's okay. Just adjust the intensity and load and apply the RPE scale. As long as you're moving the body, you're doing something productive, it's going to be useful. It's going to be useful time spent, right? And you're still conducting the behavior change and the practice that's needed to improve your health and develop yourself as a person in terms of the quality and the standard of your health and fitness. Okay, the cycle is typically divided into 4 phases. So menstrual phase, days 1 to 5, approximately. Bleeding occurs, hormones, estrogen and proestrogen are at their lowest, and energy may be lower. Recovery capacity can start to improve as bleeding ends. I've actually got a graph here, so I'll pull that onto the screen as well. So you can see how this pertains to the phases across time and energy levels, right? And hormone levels. The follicular phase, days 1 to 13. So obviously there's some overlapping with all these phases, and it's all dependent on the person. Starts on the first day of menstruation and ends with ovulation. Early follicular overlaps with menstrual phase. Estrogen gradually rises, stimulating follicle development and increasing energy, mood, and recovery capacity. Ovulation around day 14 in a 28-day cycle. Sharp estrogen peak, luteinizing hormone surge triggers egg release. Temporary boost in strength, power, and confidence, but increased ligament laxity, which may heighten injury risk. Now, there's also a lot of research coming out but being done on injury risk in different phases of the menstrual cycle amongst women, especially now that women are starting to practice professional sports and professional team sports on a much larger scale. Obviously, women have been in sport for a long time, but things are escalating in terms of how many women are being exposed to sport, how many women are seeing sport and wanting to do sport. So there's a lot more people and a lot more women being involved in sport from a younger age. So there's a lot more data for science to pull from, right? So it's going to be interesting to see how a lot of this kind of unfolds out over the next 5 to 10 years. And then number 4, the luteal phase, days 15 to 28, pro-estrogen rises post-ovulation. Estrogen has a smaller second rise, then falls. Body temperature slightly increases, fatigue, bloating, cravings can occur. Potential decrease in endurance and heat tolerance, cortisol may be elevated. So how to adapt training to each phase. So let's start with obviously the menstrual phase, the low hormone phase. What's happening here? Energy levels may be low and women might experience cramps or discomfort. Training recommendation would be to reduce expected load for strength and hypertrophy training, focus on RPE 6 to 8 for that day. If energy levels are really diminished, reducing sets and total session time can be an option. But as we said before, trying to develop your capacity to train during this phase is going to be the best thing you can do for yourself. Prioritize recovery and listen to the body's signals. I'm going to leave some research insights on each of these phases. So for this research insight, a 2019 study in sports medicine found that lower energy availability during this phase can make women more susceptible to fatigue. So adequate nutrition is crucial in this phase. Follicular phase, high estrogen phase. What's happening here? Obviously, estrogen levels rise, enhancing energy and mood, and the body's ability to repair and build muscle obviously improves. Training recommendation would be can work closer to expected load for strength and hypertrophy training, focus on RPE 8 to 9 for that day. And a research insight would be a 2021 meta-analysis published in the Journal of Sports Sciences showed that strength gains were more significant during the follicular phase due to enhanced muscle protein synthesis. So take advantage of this phase, right? Once you're in this phase and whatever you have programmed for that day, and if you're feeling good, take advantage of it, yeah? Ovulation, mid-cycle, what's happening? Estrogen peaks, boosting strength, power, and endurance. However, ligament laxity increases, making joints more prone to injury. Training recommendation would be to work closer to expected load for strength and hypertrophy training, focus on RPE 7 to 8 for that day. Focus on form and quality to minimize injury risk. So research insight would be studies in the American Journal of Sports Medicine suggest that ACL injuries in women are more likely to occur during ovulation due to increased joint laxity. And final phase, looking at the luteal phase, high progesterone phase. And what's happening here is progesterone levels rise, leading to potential fatigue, bloating, decreased coordination. Core body temperature also increases, which can affect endurance performance. Training recommendation for this phase would be to reduce expected load for strength and hypertrophy training, focus on RPE 6 to 8 for that day. Avoid pushing for maximum lifts or intense cardio to reduce risk of training. But whatever you have programmed for the day, just take the RPE as the main guiding tool for you for your training stimulus or intensity for that day. Research Insight, a 2018 study in European Journal of Applied Physiology, found that endurance performance slightly decreases during the luteal phase due to increased energy demands and thermoregulation challenges. So what are some general tips? Track your cycle using a tracking app to understand and predict hormonal fluctuations. Nutrition adjustments: increase iron intake during the menstrual phase to compensate for blood loss, for example, spinach, red meat, lentils. Focus on complex carbs and proteins in the luteal phase to combat fatigue and cravings. And focusing on rest and recovery. Listen to your body and allow extra rest days if needed, especially during the luteal phase. Now, highlighting stress management and the impact of stress on women. Why are women more prone to stress? Biologically, women's bodies are more sensitive to stress due to fluctuating estrogen and progesterone levels. Studies show women tend to have a higher baseline cortisol response than men, meaning chronic stress affects them more deeply. Chronic stress leads to adrenal burnout, weight gain, especially around the waist, mood swings, and fatigue. So what are some stress reduction strategies? Keeping it fairly simple, and the most effective tools we can apply are mindfulness and meditation. Practicing 10 to 15 minutes of meditation daily can lower cortisol levels and help restore hormonal balance. Meditation and deep breathing activate the parasympathetic nervous system, reducing stress hormone output. Implementing low stress and decompression type activities are strongly recommended, so things like yoga, sauna, walking, time in nature, etc. And practical tips will be to integrate 5-minute mindfulness breaks throughout the day. Simply sitting in silence for 5 minutes, sitting in a dark, unstimulating room, doing a 5-minute silent meditation is very, very productive and very effective for managing stress and reducing stress levels. Suggest journaling or practicing gratitude to shift focus away from stress. And physical activity. Moderate exercise helps flush cortisol out of the system, so a simple walk or light yoga during the day can help. Now, looking at recovery and optimizing sleep. What's the importance of recovery? Why it's crucial? Muscle growth and repair occur during recovery, not during workouts. So overtraining without proper recovery can elevate cortisol and suppress testosterone, leading to muscle loss and fatigue. Some practical tips here would be to incorporate active recovery days with low impact activities like walking, stretching, or yoga. Better still, if you had a very intense training session the day before, often the best rest is reducing stressful activity to zero, almost, depending on how you're feeling. Emphasize listening to the body, taking rest days when needed, especially during high stress periods. Sleep for hormonal balance, and we have to realize that sleep and hormone production are heavily linked together. Sleep is when key hormones like growth hormone for muscle repair and fat burning, and leptin, which controls hunger, are released. Lack of sleep leads to higher cortisol and ghrelin, while lowering leptin, which can trigger overeating and fat gain. Now, it's proven in science, recent sleep research science, that the less you sleep, the more you eat, and the higher your susceptibility for cravings for high fat, high sugar foods. So some practical sleep tips here are: establish a consistent sleep routine aiming for 7 to 9 hours of sleep per night. Women tend to, in my experience, always need more sleep than men. All right, so do factor that in when you're trying to optimize your health and fitness. Recommended limiting blue light exposure from screens before bed to enhance melatonin production. I would go as far as, if you work in an office or you work in an environment where there's a lot of harsh overhead lights, or you're on a screen for the vast majority of the day, I would suggest wearing blue light blockers in the daytime to limit this eye strain, limit the stimulus from all of that light, which can impact your sleep and drain your energy levels. Because you have to realize that your eyes and your brain, the optic nerve, but also your brain and your eyes generally, they take up a lot of energy for such small parts of your body, such small organs. They use up a lot of significant part of your resources in terms of calories and energy stores. So if we can reduce the stress on those systems by utilizing blue light blockers if we're in environments when you're on screen, like I am now, or if you're in a harsh environment with overhead lighting, then that can help to improve your sleep quality later on in the day. Yeah. And last suggestion here is calming bedtime routines, such as reading or taking a warm bath to improve sleep quality. Now, looking at how hormone optimization enhances performance, physique, and longevity. Main hormones affected here are cortisol, insulin, estrogen, and thyroid hormones. By managing stress and incorporating proper nutrition and recovery, cortisol levels are reduced, leading to better energy management and focus. Proper nutrition and exercise improves insulin sensitivity, which helps regulate fat storage and energy levels. Balance estrogen levels through exercise, proper nutrition, and stress management support bone health, fat metabolism, and reproductive health. Thyroid hormones, final point, adequate sleep, balanced meals, and stress reduction support thyroid health, which governs metabolism and energy levels. So the benefits here are increased energy and mental clarity. Optimizing cortisol, insulin, and thyroid hormones improve energy, focus, and productivity. Better physical performance. Balanced hormones mean faster recovery, better muscle retention, and increased fat burning. And of course, long-term health and longevity and quality of life, right? Yes, we want to live for a long time, but we want the quality of living for a long time, yeah? By keeping hormones in balance, women can reduce their risk of chronic diseases like diabetes, cardiovascular disease, and osteoporosis. Okay, thank you for watching. Do like the video if you enjoyed it, and if you've not already, subscribe to my channel. And of course, if you're tired of waiting for the right time and you want to break through the plateau, accelerate high performance levels through strategy, execution, behavior change, and science-based nutrition, join my high performance movement, send me a DM and we can set up a call. Thank you for watching. See you on the next one.